Welcome to Mom's. This is the Brother SE630, and this is a combination sewing and home embroidery machine. So we're going to go through and look at how to operate the sewing machine part first, and then we will branch out into the embroidery part and see what all you can do with that function. So before we get started, I'm going to come around. Let's just look at what all came with the machine. First, you get a dust cover to cover your machine up when not in use. Now, all of this is for the embroidery component, which, like I said, we're going to look at that later. This is going to be your arm. This will be the hoop that goes on it, and this is a guide that you're going to use to get the placement of your picture ready. Now, this does only have a 4" by 4" embroidery field. There is a way to expand that by moving your fabric around, but we'll look at that in depth when we get to the embroidery part. For now, let's just look at the sewing machine options. So we have quite a range of feet that came with it. You have, let's see, the J foot is on your machine. That's your multi-purpose foot or your zigzag foot. Your N foot, this one right here, is the monogramming foot. You have an overcasting or a G foot. That's for like doing a rolled edge or an overcast edge. We have a zipper foot, which is I. We have a blind stitch foot, which is R. You can use this for hemming pants when you don't want the seam to show. This is a button foot. It's what you use to put buttons on. It's really handy. And this is your Q foot. This is what you're going to use for embroidering. This is your buttonhole foot. It's adjustable. You can put the button right in here and it will sew the buttonhole to fit the button. And then you have a little case that all those can go into. Alright, let's see what else we have here. You have two different screwdrivers that go with the machine. This is a seam ripper, and it is very sharp, and for some reason dogs love to chew on these. I don't know why. But anyway, I always tell people when you open a new machine, take this out and put it somewhere safe. If it's in the storage cabinet or whatever, put that away because it will wind up in somebody's hand or mouth that really doesn't need it. We got a cute little pair of scissors. Here is a dust broom or whatever, a little brush so you can dust the brush out of the bobbin. We get 3 pre-wound embroidery bobbins, and then you have 1 blank bobbin, and then there's 1 blank one in the machine. I have never used pre-wound bobbins before, but I'm jumping on the train. I actually just ordered several different kinds, so we'll do a video comparing the different brands. This is an eyelet punch. If you try to make holes or eyelets in your fabric, this is actually a sharp edge right here. You can press it down on the fabric and it cuts a perfect little hole. Alright. We've got a few extra needles. The ones with the gold tip are for machine embroidery. The others are for sewing. This is an extra spool, and you would put that right up in here. This is for if you need to use the twin needle, and there is also a twin needle included. Now, all of these things have to do with the thread. This mesh thing, if you're using a thread, like a metallic thread, or something that just seems to come unwound, it's just out of control, you can put this over your thread before you put it on your machine, and it kind of keeps that thread under control. You wouldn't necessarily need it on cotton thread like this. Now, there are 4 different spool caps, and the one you're going to use will depend on the spool of thread. So, for example, if I have a spool like this, you can see the top of it, you're just going to use this little one. It will fit right on the inside, and then you can put it on your spool pin. If you have a thread that has a bigger opening, you want to use the size that is as close to the top. Now see, this one would be too small. So I'd want to go to the next size like this. This holds your thread onto the spindle while it's being pulled off. The thread is being pulled off the spool. And it also, a lot of times spools will have a little nick in them to keep your thread from unraveling, and you don't want it to get caught in that. So it needs to be just a tad bit bigger than the end of your spool, but not much bigger. See, this would be way too big. And when you have one that is way, way too big, it can throw your tension off just a little, okay? We also have a foot pedal right here and your electric cord. Now, this machine will go by itself. You can hit this button and it will sew. Here's your speed control. If you have your foot pedal plugged in, this button will not work. Okay, it will not sew by itself as long as the foot pedal is plugged in. So keep that in mind. Don't think your machine is malfunctioning. Okay, let's turn it on and let's see if we can get a bobbin wound and the machine threaded and take a few first stitches. So over here on the side is your on-off button. So we'll turn it on. And when it comes on, there's a menu that comes up. And it goes through all these little pictures, and you can just touch the menu at any point. Now, settings are in here. I'm going to leave it just like it is for right now. As we go through here, I may want to adjust some things. The first thing I see is the needle position is on the left as a default, and I usually like to have mine in the center. Now when you want to start changing your settings, this button right down here that looks like a little piece of paper with the corner bent down, if you touch that, it will run you through a screen where you can turn on or off the width control, the fine adjustment. If you want to use your twin needle, you're going to hit this button. Let me go back through there. Then the arrows will scroll you through. Now here's initial position, and that's probably going to be something I change. This will have to do with embroidery, so we'll look at that later. Once again, more about embroidery. The thumbnail size, you see, you're going to be able to customize. Now, needle up down position, this is where is the needle when you stop. So right now it's in the needle down position. That's usually how I leave mine. You can turn the buzzer off if it's beginning to bother you. You can set it so that the opening screen does not come on every time. It's just going to come up where you are. I did already set my language button the first time I turned it on. And then, do you want the light to be on or off? The input sensitivity of your keypad. If you find that you're really having to push hard, you can change that right here. And then the last page is going to be information for you. You can tell when it's been serviced or how many stitches you've done in embroidery. Okay, so that's pretty cool. Well, let's see about winding a bobbin first. Okay, let's see if we can fill up a fresh bobbin now. Now, when you're sewing, you don't have to use the same thread that you use in the top. I usually do, but I mean, there's no rule about that. So anyway, here's the clear bobbin. We're just going to snap it right there, have it ready. Now, take your spool of thread, and you want your thread to be coming over the top and out under the bottom. And we're just going to slip it right onto the spindle. We're going to get the appropriate top there. Okay. Now our first stop is going to be right over here at this guide, and you do have to pop it in there. So pop it under there. We're going to come around under this and then around this direction. Now this is where it gets a little bit tricky. Come over to this side and then immediately go right back around, and then you want to come around this and floss it up under this little round thing. Now we're ready to go all the way over here. We're going to go to the back of the bobbin and wrap it around 4 or 5 times. You need a pretty good tail for this. All right, underneath here is a slot. So we're going to slide it in there and pull it to the front until it pops off. It will pop off. Now, press this over this direction. And if you have your foot pedal plugged in, you can put pressure on that and that'll make it go. Or you can press, and right now the button is orange right on the front just above the needle. If you press it, it's going to start winding. Okay, press it again, it turns it off. There's also a speed control on the front with the arrows. It's got 1 arrow, 2 arrows, or 3 arrows. If you slide that over, it's going to go faster. See, I'm speeding it up. That's halfway. And that's full speed. It's very quiet, and it's doing a really nice job of winding a nice even bobbin. This is impressive. So once it starts to slow down, as it will in just a second, right there, you're going to hit your button to turn it off. Okay? Move this to the left, take your bobbin up, and you can use your little scissors to cut your thread. Now we have a nice bobbin. So let's see if we can insert this into the bobbin case. Okay, let's get this bobbin loaded. First we need to remove this top. So you're going to slide this to the right and it's going to pop up. Just take your cover out of there. Now there was already a blank bobbin in here, so take that one out and set it to the side. Now here's the one that we just threaded. You want your thread to come off the top to your left, and you're just going to drop it right in there. Okay. Now this little lip right here, you've got to bring the thread to your right, let it fall just under the tip of that, and then slide it back to your left. Now see, it's under here. And then follow this little channel all the way around. Now, you can pull it to your right here. I'm going to get it back in there. And it will snap it the appropriate length. And then you don't have to do something that we call pulling up the bobbin. I prefer to pull up my bobbin. And it's perfectly fine either way you want to do this. But I'm going to... No, I'm not. I'm going to have to pull it back out because it's seated in there. I just get my thread under there, and I'm just going to leave it hanging out right there so that I can pull up the bobbin myself once I get the top thread loaded. Snap your cap back on there, and we are ready to load the top now. A couple of things we need to get set before we start trying to do the upper threading is, first of all, on your hand wheel, this knot or this line right here, it needs to be lined up with the crack right here. So what you want to do, if it's not, you're going to turn your hand wheel gently towards the front of the machine until it does line up with that crack right there. What that does is it raises your needle to the uppermost position, and it also makes sure that your take-up lever right here is at the top. Now the other thing we need to do is make sure that the presser foot is raised, and your presser foot lever is right over here. So if it's down, just lift it up, okay? And the reason for that is there's some tension discs in here. You really can't see them, but when this is down, those discs are shut tight. When it's up, to put tension on the thread, when it's up, they're wide open. So as we're threading this machine, we want those discs wide open. So once you have your notch at the top and your presser foot raised, we are ready to thread the machine. This is actually going to start off much like it did when we did the bobbin. You're going to put your thread on the spool with it coming from the bottom. Then you're going to put the appropriate cap on. Okay. Here's our number 1, and just like with the bobbin, you're going to have to pop it in there. Then we're going to come under this one. Now, that's where it stops being like the bobbin. we're just going to drop it right down here in the channel. Now remember, this is where your tension discs are, so it's very important that your presser foot is up at this point. So we just dropped the thread down this channel. Now you see where there's a 3 and then what looks like a U-turn? That's what we're fixing to do. We're going to go under this and come right back up in the channel beside it. Now, there is a silver take-up lever right here. And you want to be sure that when you're coming up, you bring your thread over to the right. Then pull it all the way to the back. There's a little plastic lip out here that's going to guide you over to the left. So once you get it behind, that take-up lever has a little hook in it. So once you get it to the back of it, you pull your thread over to the left and then bring it down. It slipped right inside that little hook there. All right, we're going to drop it back down in that same channel because it came up on the right, it made the U-turn and came down on the left, and that put it into the hook. All right, now let's go to the needle part. Now we have dropped it right down by the number 5 position, and we're headed here to the number 6. Now if you notice, the 6 is written on this metal block here, and then there's a thin metal tab right here. We need to go in between these. So what you're going to do, I have to use both hands, and I'm going to try to stay out of the way. You're going to hold your thread so that it's horizontal and slip it right there in between until it pops. Now when it comes out, you can see my thread is right here and it's caught by this little metal guide right here. Okay, now this machine has a needle threader, an automatic one, and a very fancy one at that. Now it works for needles that are size 75 to 100, which is most home sewing needles. You can go ahead and try it. You know, just try it slowly. If it's not going to work, it's just not going to work. And then you'll want to stop right here. You don't have to use the needle threader. You can stop right here and thread it through the hole at the bottom of your needle, front to back. We're going to try the needle threader. Now when you get to this point, it's time to let that presser foot down. Okay. Now to thread the threader, this little V shape in here, you're going to slide your thread up through there, come across and slip it right in between. There's a number 7 and we're on number 7. Okay, so now it's ready to thread it. Right here on the left hand side, pushing this down is what's going to engage the needle threader. So let me turn back around. Now let's watch what happens when I press that lever down. It's going to swing around and it just pushed the thread through the needle. Now there's a loop outside the back. Okay, so you're going to want to grab that loop and pull it towards the back. That's going to pull the thread all the way out. Now, as far as pulling up the thread, like I told you I like to do, what you want to do at this point is hold your thread, the top thread. You're going to hold the thread that's coming out of the needle to the left. With your hand, rotate the hand wheel towards you, or you can press the needle down button. I just like to rotate the hand wheel. Sink the needle down, bring it back up, and you will see that when you bring that needle up, now your bobbin thread made a loop around your needle thread. So you can pull it up out of your bobbin, lift your foot, and I like to put them both under the foot. So now you have a needle thread and you have a bobbin thread, both coming out together.